mighty crowd here in Sound Union. Sound Union is a wonderful community for musicians and creative folks with studios and instruments. Thank you to John Avila and Sound Union for hosting this. Thank you very much. Love the golf clap. I'm Shane McLaughlin. I'm a communications and content professional with the good fortune to have worked at several global companies doing storytelling and branding and communications. I'm a facilitator, a storyteller, a brand evangelist, and I really enjoy collaboration and bringing people together to do meaningful things. And that's what we're doing here, is having a really good, meaningful, really excellent Red Talk discussion, really excellent discussion. And when I say discussion, that includes not just us, but also everyone online, everyone in the room, because we'll take questions live after our initial discussion with the panelists. And if you're on LinkedIn, you should be able to ask in the chat on LinkedIn. If you're in the room, we can hear you, but so people can hear you online, definitely grab the mic that's over there. So thank you. And before I introduce our esteemed guests, I just want to cue up what we're talking about. We're talking about two very unique applications of artificial intelligence. I'm really excited. First, we know that AI is transforming content as we know it, because every day, ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, Copilot, they all blow our minds on a daily basis. And we see this content being created. But how that content is being monetized, how the creators of that content get proper attribution, these are things there are big challenges that are being worked out by Amanda at ProRata. And then the second piece about this that we're talking about is the AI developments in customer service. And we're all familiar with how these chatbots are running out into the internet and doing amazing things, but turning customer conversations that they're having away from transactional or just problem solving and into deeper insights that can actually deepen that customer relationship and drive performance for the company. That's what we're going to talk to Guy about. So that's the challenge that Guy in the perspective AI we're working on. So those are the two ideas. These are my two guests. I'm going to introduce you now. First, Amanda Edmonds is an AI and digital media leader who thrives on solving complex business challenges in the tech and publishing industry. She is VP of Business Partnerships at ProRata.ai. That's a company that is solving this challenge that I just mentioned of compensating content creators and content owners. And before you were at ProRata, you were at Google for a while, working with news partners to drive ad revenue, and also other notable things like Google Books, which was one of the most transformative initial initiatives in the history of the internet. Really interesting stuff. Amanda holds a BA from the University of St. Thomas in Texas, an MA from North Carolina State, and a certificate in book publishing from NYU. So thank you for being here. And then Guy, okay, go ahead. Yeah. Anytime. It'll be great. Thank you. And Guy Paz is a globally recognized thought leader in customer success technology and AI innovation. He started Tatango, which is a customer success platform that businesses use to optimize customer journeys and earn the trust of brands including GitHub, Zoom, SAP, some really big players in that space. But Guy is back with his new venture, Perspective AI, and that's a platform that turns passive feedback into actionable, deeper conversations, like I mentioned, that doesn't just understand what customers do, but like what they're thinking and how a company can deepen and improve and grow and thrive as a result of what they learn. So Guy's not only a successful entrepreneur, he's a former tank battalion commander and author. Those are two different things. He co-wrote Farm Don't Hunt, the definitive guide to customer success. And that focuses on how subscription models are transforming the customer success function. I definitely want to talk about that because how your company is developing and working with those models is interesting. And Guy has a BA in computer science from the Academic College of Tel Aviv. So golf clap for our guests. Thank you very much. It's great to be here. Yeah, awesome. Okay. I hope it was okay. Yeah, we got some time. It's the internet. We can go as long as we want. So, well, maybe I'll start with Guy. Talk about what inspired you to create Perspective, and how does it build on your experience with this history of customer data in your background?
Sure. So it's actually a very funny story. I so I built a Tango, and we ended up selling majority for private equity. And like in any private equity, at some point they wanted their own CEO to run the business. So
Right.
I retired from the business I started, and then ChatGPT came out, and that was an escape moment for me,
Wow.
which is okay. You just use it for a little bit, and you think about all the possibilities of how things are going to be different. So I decided I gotta go back in, right? I can't just sit on the sidelines and wait. And, I'm not a VC, I'm not an investor, I'm not a consultant. I'm a problem solver, I'm a builder, so I gotta go build something. And I wanted to build. So it was around the time in which I was renovating my house. And as you renovate your house, as everyone knows, you start getting a lot of products coming into my house, and some products have this great first time experience, some products have terrible first time experience. So the great first time experience were all the digital products, Nest and Google Nest and Nest, so Nest and the Ring and Sonos before they did what they did recently, was a great first time experience, and all the physical products, which could be very much more expensive, um, just got in, installed, and sat there, and it was not very clear. So I was thinking, I've been doing customer success. Let's take AI, turn this product into first time experience of digital products and so forth. So I had this big plan on building something amazing. Um, but I had to validate the business model, right? Who's going to buy and who's going to pay? Um, and I was sitting with ChatGPT and asking some questions. So how would I know that? And recommended that I would do market research. So I said, okay, so help me understand better market research. Give me an example. So he gave me like this bunch of questions. Ask me those questions. It did. I felt it was very good way of communicating, and then okay, based on my answers, would I be a good buyer of this product? And this entire experience got me realizing that everyone is building something new right now, and everyone is trying to understand what the market is thinking about something, and maybe that's the product. So that's what Perspective AI is, which is basically helping businesses to truly understand their customers. We call this customer clarity, by sending them this link that launches into a conversation that really goes deep into their motivations, their aspirations, their intentions, so companies can truly understand their customers in a way that they've never been able to do before, because they had an option to go with surveys, which are very scalable but very superficial, or to actually talk to customers, which is the school I grew up in, but that takes a lot of time and it's expensive and it's very minimalistic. So now AI breaks through that and allows you to go much wider. So I thought, in a world that the AI is changing the landscape, let's help the builders build something really great.
That's awesome. And you're helping builders, and Amanda with ProRata is helping the creators. And why don't you give us a little bit of your background on how that works in ProRata's mission that ensures these AI platforms are compensating people properly?
Sure. So kind of similar, we have a little bit of an origin story as well. Our founder is Bill Gross, who founded Idea Lab, which is an incubator that starts up lots of really interesting companies, and ProRata is one of them. And when he saw the lawsuit that the New York Times filed against ChatGPT, the takeaway that he came away from with that was that was a failure in business model. And so he was looking at what's a way to apply a business model solution to this situation. And so that's what we're doing. We're building out a attribution platform that will allow us to look at the outputs of generative AI and fairly credit and compensate the creators whose work is going into powering those experiences.
Wow, that's great. And both companies are involved with AI innovation that's rethinking how companies make money, and that's what's really fascinating me. And I'd like to hear from you both. Like 2/3 of a company's revenue comes from existing customers, so that's a huge thing. And then there's a whole universe of media out there that has been historically losing value, but now we see the value of it. And obviously, there's a monetization model there. Why don't we start with Amanda? Like, how is the monetization model going to work, and what can we learn?
Yeah, so I mentioned we're building this attribution platform, and the idea is that an LLM, or really any entity out there that wants to fairly compensate the creators that are going into those generative AI outputs, can use that to look at what are those source content that's going into the outputs. For us, we're going to demonstrate that on our own O&O property called Gist.ai, which will be launching in the first half of this year.
Okay.
And so that's our own AI search engine that will show our attribution bar. And we are committed to compensating the creators that go into that experience. And we're splitting our revenue with them 50-50.
That's awesome. And Guy, for you, what are the ways that you're monetizing the model?
For us, it's actually pretty simple. We charge based on conversation, which is, basically tokens in, tokens out. But the unique part here is the ability to remove the friction from companies going to their customers.
Right.
So, big projects are becoming simple projects, and another way to think about this is there are all sorts of AI models, and in AI, one of the key things is what is the AI grounding is based on. Well, what's this information? So Amanda, you were talking about the too many. I don't know if too many, but a lot of the models are grounding their learning based on the existing IP of someone, and you're trying to kind of figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
In our case, we think for businesses, a lot of what they need to do is to decide based on what their customers think. So the first step is understand what their customers think, and then build intelligence based on that in order to come up with decisions or plans and so forth.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And for Amanda, AI is informed by so many sources, and Perplexity was the first one that really came out and said, oh, we got to source this, and everyone followed. But anytime you do a search, there's a number of links. How does the algorithm work to allocate, understand who gets what?
As you said, in my education, I don't have a computer science degree,
Yeah.
so I'm going to answer this as best I can.
Sure.
So what we essentially have done is reverse engineered that output. So we ingest the content from our partners so that we have all of that data ourselves. We keep it in a RAG store, and we reduce it down to its simplest of claims in each article.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we look at that generative AI output, we identify those source claims and then are able to account for it on a ProRata basis. So you can see this article contributed 20% to this answer. This one might have only contributed 5% to an answer. And then we also include links back to those source articles so that if someone really wants to do a deeper dive and really understand what a particular source is saying about a topic, they have all the capability information there to do that.
That's awesome. Great. And Guy, you wrote a book called Farm Don't Hunt. And I love the concept. And there's 4 ideas. Farming is the idea that you're not hunting for customers, but you're cultivating the customers you have. Growing. Customer success as a separate business, right? As this idea that it's not just a support function. And then the third one, not 4, I'm sorry, is that there's a portfolio of offerings that it's so much more expansive than just support and sales and upselling. Can you talk about like how you've incorporated that philosophy? Like, how is AI going to expand on the ideas that are in Farm Don't Hunt? Because it's a really interesting book.
Thank you. The origin of Farm Don't Hunt was, the goal was to explain customer success in a way that the world will understand easily.
Mm-hmm.
And the personal goal was not to be in so many meetings. So, you write a book and you send, it's scaling the
Sign me up
idea,
for that.
right? So I don't think AI is necessarily. One can think about AI as breaking the linear line and starting a new one. I actually think it's just a progression. So the value of customers for businesses, right? So it's much easier to build products these days. So everyone is building products. The skill level that's required is much lower, and so forth. But there's a finite amount of money slash time slash motivation of customers who are actually buying new products and technologies, right? So this idea of customer in the center of your business, this idea of customer centricity and running a business around customers is an age-old problem. I think some companies did it better than others, but now there's no other option but to run a customer-centric business because the competition is so fierce. So this idea of farm don't hunt, meaning that if you already have a customer and you landed them, now you got to make sure that they get value from the products and services that you sold them, is so mandatory now, more than ever before. So that's the idea of farm don't hunt. The concept was, just for the audience that is not aware of the book, the idea was to explain that if you think about the metaphor as farming, you can only influence the drivers, not the outcome, right? How many oranges you're going to have on your tree is not dependent on. You can influence that at the time of when the oranges are already there. You got to influence the farming and nurturing and so forth and so forth. So I think now it's more powerful than ever before. I think AI accelerates that because of the fierce competition and the lower cost of building new products and services, and truly being in sync with your customers and truly understanding them. So I think the levels of let's say platitude or lip service of saying, okay, we are customer centric or we care about our customers, but not really living it, is not going to cut it anymore. So I think that becomes a huge challenge for many businesses to really have this idea of customer clarity, and that's I think that's what AI is, both the challenge, right? It's way more complicated way more challenging than ever before, but also the opportunity, because with AI you can understand your customers much faster. So if you commit to that, you can actually do it.
And I wonder, building on that idea of understanding customers, you're using AI in a back-end way as an algorithm, but do you also use it to understand what media companies are thinking, or do you get alerts and things that can help inform how you're thinking as the VP of partnerships?
It's a nice idea, but a lot of what we're doing now at this stage in the company is really just out there talking to the ecosystem. One of the things that's really important to us is that we are trying to build tools that serve the ecosystem's needs. And so we don't want to do that by making guesses. We want to actually have real conversations, kind of like what Guy's talking about.
There you go.
So at some point, yes, but at this particular stage in the company, it's really important to us to have those one-to-one relationships with the ecosystem.
Okay. And speaking of the ecosystem, we talked a little bit about, and I'd like to go a little deeper on the litigation that's happening. The New York Times has a lawsuit against OpenAI. Some engineers with OpenAI accidentally deleted a bunch of New York Times stuff. Maybe they did, whatever. And there was you said there was a lawsuit that came out today.
Yes,
from
so
Alphabet.
there was an announcement of Chegg, which is a academic kind of textbook type service provider. They filed a lawsuit against Alphabet. They were citing that the generative AI outputs were having a material impact on their ability to maintain their subscriber base. They were citing a 24% decline year over year in their subscribers.
Wow.
So it is an existential threat. If that really is attributed to those chatbot experiences that students are going and using, then you can see how this will have a material impact on companies like that being able to stay in business.
And like your CEO said, and we talked about before, if the content creators aren't incentivized, then the experience, at least from a media point of view, it flounders, and no one wants to get into creating or writing or books and things like that. Yeah,
That's right.
but in your world, though, obviously customers are creating that data, so you don't have as much of an issue there, because they're giving you everything you need to maybe perhaps shape their experience.
Yeah, I don't think they're giving me. They're giving, those relationship with their providers or vendors could be much better if a company could understand its customers much better and deliver for what they're looking for in a much better way. I think the opportunity with AI. So let's put AI for a second on the analysis side, right? Like how AI is intelligent and consuming data, but the ability to automate conversations, which are intelligent and meaningful and so forth, allows for companies to have way more conversation with their customers. So maybe early on, and kind of, we're not saying you should only have AI conversation. We're saying you should have many more conversation with your customers, right? So augment your one-on-one conversations that you can only have with your few of your customers, usually the major ones, with as many conversations as possible. Once you have that, you are able to truly understand your customers and adapt appropriately. I think that's the point. And every business that starts like my wife, which is has her yoga business, so they talk to all of their customers, and they keep very close relationship with their customers. As they scale, they kind of lose touch, and they kind of move a little bit backwards, and this is where they're starting losing the nuance that is important. And I think it shouldn't happen anymore. And that's what we're trying to help companies do. Then, of course, we can analyze all this information that came up in this conversation. But the first thing is connection, frequency, authenticity, truly understanding.
And you got some new customers. What are they saying, and what kind of feedback are you getting about the feedback?
I think anyone that has been in an office situation where you sit down and you try to think what customers are thinking or saying, or who's our customers, and what's more important, let's prioritize, and this is always amazed by. I mean, I grew up in engineering. Every time you take an engineer to meet a customer, their eyes open.
That's great.
I'll give you like one story. I remember I was running engineering at this company like many years ago. I was trying to convince my engineers to improve the logs, right? Whatever, distributed computing. It's kind of very technical.
Right.
We sent this guy to the UK once the iPhone came out. There was like this big crisis. The system couldn't keep up and so forth. One of our guys went to the UK, came back. I told me, don't talk to me. I'm working on logging for 2 weeks. And I'm saying, what made you do that? I said, I was so embarrassed sitting there trying to debug the situation, and the experience was so bad to our customers that I'm gonna just fix it. The point being is, once you walk in their shoes, once you talk to them, you see this from a different perspective. The level of understanding changes dramatically, and I think that's just mandatory these days.
Right. And Amanda's customers, one thing that fascinates me about ProRata is, I know the New York Times and the media companies get all they're getting the attention because there's a lot of money, but there's also authors, musicians, artists, anyone that creates anything. How does the model for ProRata tailor itself to meet those different areas?
So right now we're focused on text. That'll be the initial launch of just.ai, but we're looking at a roadmap that will include kind of multimodal content types.
Nice.
So audio, video, image will all be included. And so it'll be a similar model in that we're committed to sharing 50-50 with creators. So anytime we generate revenue, we will share that evenly with the creators that are providing the content.
Yeah, 50-50 that's a wonderful percentage that in business you don't hear a lot, especially with IP and things. And maybe in 3 or 5 minutes, we'll start taking questions, John, if that works. And if you have a question, we'd love to hear it, because I don't want to just hear my questions. And questions from the internet
They're
too.
pretty good.
No, thank you. Good, thank you. They're coming from you. That's good. I know you have high standards, so thank you, Guy. I wanted to ask about something that's still very much a challenge, and maybe it's a little bit outside. This guy's laughing at me. Maybe some a little bit outside, but I think it's really important thing to break up and to put out there, and that's the bias that is reflected. We talked about it in our last session when you were here, Amanda. I mean, it creeps in through training data, model design, unintended human influence. It's probably more of something for you, Guy, than for Amanda. But what are you doing to identify and mitigate it? Because it's getting better, but it's still an issue.
So I think in my case, I'm talking about like a business that needs to make a business decision or come up with a plan and so forth. So the previous company I started to Tango was because I was an executive at this company, like running engineering and product, and management meetings were a nightmare.
Yeah,
We couldn't make decisions because we're a very customer centric company, but every executive talked to different customers in the last few weeks and had a very different point of view of what we should do next, right? Because this customer had this issue, so we got to solve this versus something else. And when I started to Tango, the idea was, okay, let's just capture digital data, so we'll have like a very objective point of view. I think, I want to mix both of these things. I think, the way to overcome bias is volume.
Yeah,
just talk
that's a
to
good
more,
point.
just talk to more people. Not, I mean, the good news is that when people tell you something forcefully, they convince you, and that's a good thing, and it drives organizations to action. But if you want to make sure that you're not just targeting the squeaky wheel, like just customers that have problems, or just customers that have the highest, the best connections to leadership, just talk to more customers and then wait it out and decide.
Do you have a kind of human in the loop kind of check or verify process to make sure that if you're creating some insight that you've created a little bit of a sniff test of that insight?
So at this stage, I think what we're trying to do is help companies come up with their own decisions. So if I look at the metaphor of coding, it's ultimately the developer that is committing the code or kind of making the change. Support them in everything that they do, but there's the accountability is of a human, right? So ultimately, if there's a plan or a decision, it's a human decision. I still don't see businesses that are just saying, okay, run our quarterly planning or annual planning. Just do it.
Yeah.
We'll follow you and we'll make it good. But I think you can actually make better decisions. So I call this decision with precision and plans with precision. Like really ground the decision based on information that is meaningful, as opposed to hunches and assumptions.
Amanda, do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, obviously, it's a little bit outside of, but so.
Well, we've talked about our partners, but we also have users of our product. So when we launch that, we are very focused on providing a really high quality experience for them. And so obviously we've all read and heard and maybe even experienced AI hallucinations to one degree or another. So we certainly think a lot about that and how to ensure that the product is providing that kind of high value and minimizing those types of risks. I think for us, one of the things that helps with that is that we only use licensed content. So we're not going out there and scraping the entire web and then having a lot of miscellaneous information that's coming into the system that could potentially be steering it the wrong direction. So that certainly helps. But that is a top of mind for us.
Yeah, sometimes it's pretty funny, the hallucinations that still come out. And I could tell you some stories, but I won't, because.
But AI is not the only one that has hallucinations, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
we do.
Some of your team members also have hallucinations. So
it's true. Well, their AI is just mirroring us, so we're unpredictable. Let's also talk about measurement and KPIs. Uh, KPIs can be so variable based on your industry and where you are, but how do you measure success? What data points do you consider in terms of growing the business? And maybe start with Amanda. Like, you are staring down a huge opportunity, and how are you tracking how you're doing?
At a very core level, it's providing attribution for searches that are on generative AI engines. That is a very kind of core thing that we're looking at, and making sure that we have that opportunity to enable attribution to be driving compensation for those creators.
Okay, that's cool. How about Guy?
Yeah, I think I'll touch it on two levels. One is, just to answer your question, we measure number of conversations.
Okay.
Right? That's the metric we charge based on conversations. So but I think if you ask me why did we decide to go with that, I think one of the opportunities that AI is, again, I think it's from a competitive perspective, it's pay per value versus pay per access or pay per content and so forth. So I think that's the, I really think that there's one way to look at that, which is AI is really is a true force multiplier when it comes to user experience, and force multiplier when it comes to value to customers. It really puts the Claude 3.7 came out today. DeepSeek came out 2 weeks ago. Gemini 2.0 came out. I mean, we thought a year ago that nobody's going to be able to compete with OpenAI, and all of a sudden everyone is competing with OpenAI. Sorry, Grok 3 came out on Friday. So point being is that I think consumers are in the driver's seat for, to ask for value, and that's what we're seeing pricing, which is very, very, very consumer focused pricing, which I think was going to trickle down to other business models of companies to be able to support that. Otherwise, obviously they're going to be hit by competition.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And I think the broader question I'd love to get from you both is that future that AI is redefining. Your CEO invented pay-per-click, and that changed the internet. And we talked about mobile came along, and when mobile hit, companies had to completely evolve. And you still see old websites on mobile, and they drive everyone nuts, but they're still out there. But we know they're old. Now AI is coming along, and it's dangerous a little bit if you're in a creative field, but there are opportunities, because Apple today announced a ton of new jobs, AI related jobs. And you are both in spaces that didn't exist maybe 5 years ago. So what are your thoughts on not only the future of your plays and what you're doing, but other things we could think about and consider, especially as folks are trying to pivot, because everyone's got to reskill right now or be left behind. What do you think, Guy?
So I think we mentioned this before, so I don't want to take credit for that, but AI is not a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's just a new reality of a capability that you gotta adapt to. I think mobile is a good example, but I think a stronger example is the internet. Right.
Yep.
I mean, there was an internet in the 90s, and it doesn't exist anymore. Right. Do you know where the internet is? It's just the way it is. We are connected, and we're my kids, my youngest son calls everything connected Wi-Fi. I'm telling him that's not Wi-Fi. This is GPRS. This is 5G. No, it's Wi-Fi. Connected or not. These are the two options. So I think the same thing here with AI is like intelligent interfaces to computers or devices or whomever, or not. And I think if you're not going to have intelligent interface, then it's not going to be as exciting as something else. And I'm not talking about IoT, where your dishwasher tells you that I'm done with my cycle, which I don't know what to do with that. I mean, my wife told me that before. So,
it's supposed to sort through your laundry and do your laundry eventually.
My point being is, intelligent or not intelligent, this is this is the direction we're going. It's part of the same, internet, and then accessibility through mobile, so internet in your pocket, and then intelligent smart devices. It's just
Yeah.
the progress we're going with, and yes, of course, once machines can do things that humans can do, then people will need to find more valuable things to do. But
Hmm.
it's not like a better or worse. It's just the way it is. It's just we're not going to public libraries anymore because we've got Google. So what can we do?
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think pretty much every industry out there will have an impact on the way their back-end operations work, the way business decisions are made. Companies like Guys are going to come in and really just change the way that we do the work that we do.
Hmm.
And I mean, even your wife's yoga business will probably have some kind of AI impact, right? It's like every type of business is likely going to find efficiencies or better targeting or some way to improve upon their own KPIs using AI is kind of my guess. I'm more, as a consumer of AI, I'm more interested in what are some of the things that might happen out there that are more consumer facing.
Sure.
So I always fantasize about things like my 11-year-old likes to watch the same movie over and over and over again. And so I wonder if a Disney, for instance, is out there thinking about how to bring AI into some of their movies to freshen the experience in some way, to really try to create more of that type of repeat usage of narratives and things like that. So I don't know what those will look like. I just think it's kind of an interesting runway that we have right now for how AI might be brought into some of our more consumer facing products.
Yeah, with Netflix, and eventually it'll just make the movies too.
Well, and the personalization alone will just become phenomenal, is my guess.
And it's fine. Yeah, it seems like personalization on these platforms is getting better. And for a while, I was like, that would be the last movie I would watch, and now it's coming up.
Well, when you go from matching things on keywords to matching on a semantic contextual understanding of the content, it's a game changer.
Yeah, absolutely. Questions? Anyone? All right, Andy, do we have any online as well, or no? No questions online. I bet my mom has a question. She might. Mom, ask a question if you want. I didn't know. I would not do that. Thank you, Andy.
I just wanted to thank you, Shane and Guy and Amanda, for a fantastic forum.
Yeah.
I actually have 5 questions. 2 for Amanda, 3 for Guy.
Love it.
Amanda, start with you. This is kind of the second time that we've seen large content creators, the New York Times, the Reuters, et cetera, kind of miss the boat, or kind of miss the first technological transition. The first being like when the web first came out, we didn't know what to do with it from like a writing perspective, and now we're seeing kind of folks resort to litigation compared to like working with AI companies to build out like a pricing model where they work together. Why do you think that is?
It's such an interesting question, because I suspect there are quite a few factors that go into it. You certainly have, when you talk about media companies, there are some that are very traditional legacy businesses that are still making a lot of decisions based on being a legacy business. And so I imagine that's impacting some of them. The New York Times is not that. I would say the New York Times is one of the most forward-thinking media companies out there, and they reimagine their product offering on a pretty regular basis. So it's not the case for all of them. You also have the problem of the innovator's dilemma, where they kind of have a lock on what they think is their market, their business, and then as it shifts kind of underneath their feet, they're not quite ready for that change.
Yeah, they were among the first successful walled content providers that started. Them and the Wall Street Journal making money, whereas all the other newspapers got into big trouble.
Well, and the New York Times strategy around the acquisition of the games and the Athletic,
Yeah.
it's just really. I imagine they probably study it in business school. It's a really amazing company.
Absolutely, yeah.
Number two for you, you touched on like personalization of movies in an age where like me and my friends can talk about Dumb and Dumber or The Big Lebowski or whatever else. How do you see those like human conversations changing when the movie that I see is not the same movie that you see?
Well, is the movie you see the same movie I see in terms of perspective?
Yeah,
I don't
fair
know.
point, fair point.
Yeah, it's probably already.
Yeah, I think it will. So this is something that I think what you're touching on is actually really an interesting dynamic that's going to be changing. So it'll be different for my kids than it is for me and for you. Right now, when you and I go to the Netflix homepage, we see different stuff now, right? But before, it was always the same thing,
Mhm.
right? So the experience that you're having on that platform is already kind of tailored to you, and therefore you're in your own sort of echo chamber of personalization already. And so that basically means that kind of monolithic experience of media where everybody is seeing the same thing is that age is kind of over now. Everything will likely move toward that more kind of micro personalization.
We all watched
Can
TV
I-
on Thursday night. Go ahead. I missed those days in the 80s. Everyone watched the same show and talked about it
Right.
the next day.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't.
But I
happen.
think in my opinion, I think what COVID showed us is that shared experiences and connections. I mean, Sound Union here, like shared experience connections, is still like a very humanistic. So if you think about where it's going from a humanistic perspective, I'm not sure that everyone's going to see their own movies if they can't have a shared experience and talk about this. So maybe the path to watching the movie like Netflix, you're going to see this on a Monday and I'm going to see this on a Tuesday. But I'm not. I think a lot of if you remember during COVID, we all imagined the new social structures, and then when it all broke, where people couldn't connect to one another, and
Mhm.
we could see that people are actually looking for physical, emotional connections and so forth. So I think a lot of the difference is going to be between capabilities, right? So what AI enables you to do versus consumption, which is what humanity wants to consume, right? And I think it's this is where we don't know where it's going to go, because it could be a movie for every person or a game for every person. It could be that although your TikTok and my TikTok have a different feed, but ultimately we talk about this thing that we all saw together and so forth. So I don't know where it's going to go. My guess is that humanity, the humanity elements the social elements of humanity are gonna determine how it's gonna shape up. That's my belief.
Could it potentially be like a new age of sharing where I prompt and get a movie or a TV show and then share that with my friends?
Yeah, so that's like a YouTube experience,
Yeah.
right? So it's
Right.
a much simpler creator. So instead of spending hours of editing and creating content, you're just thinking about the content you want to have, but then you're sharing and you want to get the dopamine of other people acknowledging your talent and creativity and so forth. I don't know how it's gonna play out, but my bet and my guess, especially after COVID, is that there's something about the social. I mean, we as humans is more the connection than the individuals.
Mhm.
That's how I think about this.
I think all use cases will be enabled. Basically, I think it's going to be dynamic and variable, and that all things can be true. Basically, I mean, we saw the numbers of people that watched the Super Bowl, and
Mhm.
so that was a great example of
Yep.
something where people wanted a shared experience, even when maybe some people were, maybe even a large number of the audience didn't really have a lot invested in
Right.
the outcome of that game, but it was a shared experience, and so
Mhm.
therefore people tuned in.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Guy, with
Yes.
perspective AI, what part of the customer journey does does that touch on? Is it everything? Is it certain points? Or is
Everything.
I had that question in there. I forgot to ask him.
Oh, fantastic.
Well done.
That's good. I like the
I read your notes.
I like the term customer journey.
There you
but
go.
yes, it's basically anything that you want and need to understand about your customers. I think we're in the age of what I call customer clarity, which is like aspirational point of view of really understanding your customers very well. I keep giving examples from my wife's business, but I think when you're a super small business, you really understand your customers super well because of the the scale allows you. And as you grow and as you scale as a business, you get a little bit removed from your customers. And I think this is the desired motion and model is to truly understand your customers. And I think that should be the aspirational motion of businesses to get there. Whether you get there or not, it's just getting closer is better than staying where you are.
When Net Promoter Score was invented by Fred Reichheld, and then evangelized, and now it's on every executive's mind, and to the point where it's miscalculated, misinterpreted,
Yes.
Whatever else.
Overused. It's kind of a cliche.
Exactly. And then you have some leaders that are focused on CSAT or customer effort or churn or support metrics like average handle time or resolution rate, blah, blah, blah. How do you convince those folks that are very focused on metrics and numbers to kind of shift their thinking, shift their paradigm from I need my net promoter score to be a 90 to your solution where it's like I want to understand why the net promoter score is 90?
Yeah, so I don't think it's in conflict, because if your goal is to move your net promoter score from 85 to 90 or from 40 to 80 or whatever, you need to understand what are the reasons, what are the challenges, and what you should do about that. And if you're motivated to do this very quickly, so the more precise you are in understanding, the faster you're going to move. So, I mean, even with perspective AI, the idea is, okay, so on a scale from 1 to 10, what's the likelihood you're going to recommend? 7. Okay, what do we need to do to get you to 10? But if you very quickly understand it's not about any single method. It's about having richer context, right? It's not like that the net promoter score is not good. The reason why they came up with net promoter score because the assumption was if I only have 5 seconds to engage with a customer, what would be the most efficient way? But what if I don't have 5 seconds? What if I can spend 5 minutes with a customer and ask them? Then I can identify more. And what if it's not 5 minutes with 10 customers? What if it's 5 minutes with 1,000 customers? So I don't see this as a conflict. I think the technology opens up an opportunity to actually go deeper. And on the flip side, a lot of people are asking me, so why would customers even participate? Because the response rate of surveys is very, very minimalistic, like 5%, 3%, and so forth. So I think the answer is, first, if you give them a seat at the table and you actually allow them to express themselves in a way that they feel comfortable versus forcing them into patterns that this is not how they think, and you're actually going to take action with that, and maybe you should also pay the money. But I'm putting this aside. I'm really saying, John here, Sound Union, I keep giving him advice, although he is not asking me for any advice, because I want this business to be super successful. So I'm invested in it. I think this is the relationship that most businesses want to have with their customers.
But you're a person, and I did pull up a stat I wanted to ask, because Forbes magazine said that 86% of consumers prefer to interact with human, and it's true. And I don't mean to. I'm just curious. I'd like to hear a little bit about how you're using empathy and understanding, and that's what's unique about Perspective AI, because you're bridging that gap.
Yeah, so I agree with you, right? You said 75%?
86%.
80%. Yeah, of course. Because I think it's for two reasons.
Yeah.
The 86% prefer to interact with humans versus interacting with no one,
Right.
or interacting with bad experience.
Bad chatbots. Yeah.
Right. So I think if one of the things, if you allow them to interact with someone on your behalf, which is a good experience, it's going to be better than this 86%. Now, the point I'm making, if you can talk to all of your customers, that's the example of the small business, do it. Just do it.
Mhm.
But at the point where you can talk to all of your customers, give them a very good opportunity to have a seat at the table. I think it's better than giving them zero options to engage.
Mm-hmm. We're go.
I guess to that point, how do you drive that engagement?
You need the mic.
I guess at that point, how do you drive that engagement? I mean, I know for me, I get a survey in the mail. It's the last thing I'm going to fill out. It's probably bottom of the box into my trash can. Like, I kind of think of AI as making it more efficient and a forefront where you can actually engage faster and get to that load that you mentioned. More data obviously can be better for everything, and more algorithms, more statistics, and will drive the business and also get to that answer faster.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you drive that engagement, make it a better experience?
So I'll say it in few level, like 3. I mean, I don't know if I'll get 3, but let's just keep it at 3. I mean, this is what they say in the Israeli army. Everything is broken to 3. So let's start with 3.
Rule of 3.
One is, we're all experiencing those LLMs ourselves, ChatGPT, Claude, and so forth, and we're spending a lot of time with them, and we're seeing that it's a good experience. So I think there are trillions of dollars of very good technologies that are training humanity that there is a better way to engage with computers, right? So I don't need to convince anyone. We are all doing this on a daily basis. This is how I started with this. That's one thing. Secondly, I think if the goal of that is not efficiency, the goal of that is connectivity and engagement, meaning that I'm the CEO of United Airlines and I care about what you have to say, so please tell it to me. And because I now have perspective, I can actually consume your feedback. I don't need anyone to summarize it for me. I can actually very quickly understand the key themes, and I can respond to that effectively. You will be motivated to provide feedback, because most of the feedback that you're providing right now, besides being like filling a form and repeating yourself like 100 times, every time you land on the United Airlines, you got to fill in the exact same thing. And even if you tell the issues that you've got, nothing happens. What if someone is actually going to take action on that? So I think 3 things. AI is much better, but just significantly better than it used to be. Secondly, it's about the connection between the customer, the client, and the business. And the third one, it's taking action on it and not treating you as a data provider, but treating you as a person that their point of view matters, and your business matters, and so forth. And so obviously the third point is for the business to actually take action, because if they don't, there's no technology that's going to solve this lack of taking action and so forth. But if they do, and they have the opportunity to do it, people are gonna connect. And I think we're seeing that we are seeing right now, in perspective, 90% of conversations are complete, meaning people are actually going through them because it's good experience. They speak to your level. They help you raise your concerns or voice or motivations, frustrations in a way that is natural for you. And you assume, and the people that respond assume, that the businesses are actually going to take their point of view seriously.
And that's 90% of 10,000 conversations already, right?
Yes, we launched at 10,000. Now it's way more. Yeah,
that's 9,000 conversations that were successful. So, is there a question from online?
No, that's it.
Okay. If no one else has a question, one more. Should we do one more? Last question, and then I'm going to let these. I'm going to take us home with a softball about the future and where you think it's headed. So,
Guy, you touched on this before. In my business, we know that there's a lot of survey fatigue, right? Like you mentioned, on a good day, you might get a 2%, 3% response rate from a survey. Do you see at some point in the future there being like conversation fatigue, where every customer survey is AI based, and I'm writing essays every single day about every single product that I touch, that kind of thing.
If that's going to be the implementation approach, then yes, 100%. Because I don't think this is how it works. I think we as humans, right? You don't want to repeat yourself every day, right? So the way, I mean, if we're gonna have this session tomorrow again, it's gonna be boring, and we just talked about this. So I think conversation one is much richer and denser medium to condense more information at the short and temporary, right? So the 5 minutes it takes you to survey, 5 minutes conversation, you can say way more information. And unless there's something new, just make sure that you take action on whatever came out of that, and follow up and so forth, right? You know what, let's put it this way. I don't think it's technology. I think it's relationship.
Yep.
Right? Like use technology to mimic what you would do in real life, versus try to come up with models that are, we don't want to talk every day for 30 minutes. So let's just do it the way we feel comfortable about this. And maybe you want to talk to me every 2 weeks, and maybe someone else want to talk to me every 2 months, and that's okay.
It's like, how can it surprise you and delight you, and not just take your feedback? But I almost got stranded in Park City last week. My flight was canceled, and I had to scramble to get another flight. But then I read, if I was on Delta, their AI agents will already see that you're stranded, and they will rebook you. No, like, I had to call, or I had to actually go to a gate agent. So like that seems like where that could be headed in terms of like the experience that people have on your platform. We're wrapping it up. Thank you both. Thank you both for being here. I just want to throw out 2 general questions. I hope it's not too high level, but 5 years from now, how is the media industry going to be changed as a result of this? And 5 years from now, how is customer success going to be changed as a result of this? Just to start with, Amanda, what do you think?
I think the media industry is going to have to really evolve in the way that it thinks about engaging its readers. I think the idea of starting an article at the beginning and reading it all the way to the end is already maybe not happening as much as they think it is. And so using AI to really increase the opportunities for a user to really engage with the content in a way that makes sense for them, I think is going to be important for them to maintain kind of a freshness to their site. I also think the front page of the newspaper being the same for everybody, that monolithic experience is likely to go away, and it'll be much more customizable, even down to the local news level. So I still check out my local newspaper because I want to see what's happening in my hometown, and almost 100% of the time there is something about local football on the front page.
That's great, because it knows you.
Yeah, which I love, because it's very reassuring that things are still the same at home. But but I think that those are the kinds of things that are likely to have to change for the way they think about their business. And then, of course, there's hundreds, thousands of decisions and workflow changes that'll happen in the back end in terms of how content is created, how it's edited, how it's curated. All of those things will likely be impacted.
Yeah, big changes. Guy, what are your thoughts?
I was thinking, how did marriage change in the last, let's say, 2,000 years? Probably not that much. I mean, maybe there more divorces or dynamics, but from a relationship perspective, human relationship is staying pretty much the same. So I think the customer relationship, which is a certain relationship, long-term, short-term, transactional, recurring, and so forth, is probably going to stay similar. I think the way to deliver a much higher quality and is gonna change. But I think the humanistic aspect of that is gonna stay pretty same. I think the number of companies that are gonna try to compete for everyone's wallet is gonna be exponentially exponentially bigger because the opportunity to build something great is just phenomenal these days.
It's a good point to end on. Geiner Paz from Perspective AI, Ahmed Edmonds from ProRata. Thank you so much. Can we have a golf clap, round of applause? Thank you, John Avila and Sound Union. Round of applause for Sound Union for hosting us. And please stick around because we're networking until another hour or so. And if you're online, we'll share the recording later. So thank you both. Thank you, John.